Hey guys, tonight we're going to unwind by settling into one of the oldest forms of relaxation known to humanity, a good board game. We'll be exploring the surprisingly complex and deeply spiritual world of the games played by ancient Egyptians, from pharaohs in their golden halls to the guards keeping watch on a dusty temple roof. It was a way to pass the time, connect with family, and, as we'll see, a way to prepare your soul for the most important journey of all. Of course, surviving long enough to get bored in the first place was the real game. Between the crocodiles in the Nile, the tomb construction accidents, and the fact that modern medicine was still about 3,500 years in the future, making it to a ripe old age where you could complain about your grandchildren cheating at Senet was a serious accomplishment. You probably wouldn't have made it past your first bout of dysentery, let's be honest. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. It's a quiet, no-pressure kind of space. And while you're at it, I'd love to see where you're all listening from tonight. Go ahead and post your city or country and the local time in the comments. It's always amazing to see this little community stretching across the globe. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. The sun, a relentless copper coin in the sky, finally dips below the western cliffs of Thebes, bleeding orange and purple into the hazy air. Your day of overseeing the granaries, or sculpting a temple wall, or perhaps just trying not to get heat stroke, is blessedly over. A profound sense of peace settles over the land, a quiet that is unique to the banks of the Nile. The frantic energy of the day dissolves with the heat, replaced by a cool, gentle breeze that whispers through the sycamore trees in your courtyard. You are home. Your home is not a palace, not the sprawling, labyrinthine residence of the living Horus, the pharaoh himself. But it is a place of considerable comfort and status. You are a noble, an official of some importance, perhaps a scribe of the royal treasury, or a steward of a man's estates. Your villa, nestled in the green belt between the river and the encroaching desert, is a testament to your success. The walls are thick, made of whitewashed mud brick that has kept the interior blessedly cool all day. As you walk from the entrance hall deeper into the house, your bare feet appreciate the smooth, polished plaster of the floor. The sounds of the evening are a gentle symphony. From the kitchen quarters, you hear the rhythmic grinding of grain for tomorrow's bread, a constant, soothing rasp. In the distance, the faint sound of chanting from a nearby temple drifts on the air, a low hum that is as much a part of the band soundscape as the buzzing of insects. A servant, a young woman with a quiet, efficient grace, pads by you, her footsteps silent. She carries a clay jar of cool water, and she gives you a brief, respectful nod without breaking her stride. There is an order to this world, a rhythm dictated by the sun and the great river that gives your civilization life. This rhythm, the annual cycle of inundation, growth, and harvest, is the great mainstream fact of your existence. It governs not just the food supply but the very calendar, the religious festivals, and these precious moments of structured downtime. When the Nile floods the fields, there is less agricultural work to be done, leaving more time for state projects and for leisure. You pass through the main reception hall, where earlier you might have received petitioners or conducted business. Now, it is empty, the painted columns depicting scenes of fishing and fowling standing silent in the growing twilight. The vibrant blues, reds, and yellows of the frescoes seem to soften in the dim light from the high, clear-story windows. You are heading for the heart of the home, the private family quarters, arranged around a central, open-air courtyard. Here, the air is cooler still. A rectangular pool of water, a luxury of the highest order, reflects the deepening indigo of the sky. Papyrus plants and lotus flowers grow in and around it, their perfume mixing with the sweet scent of jasmine climbing a wooden trellis on the far wall. Your wife is already here, sitting on a low stool, overseeing two of your younger children as they chase a wooden hoop around the perimeter of the pool. Their laughter is a light, happy sound that makes you smile. This is the reward for a day of hard work, for navigating the intricate politics of the court, for ensuring the gods are pleased and the storehouses are full. A servant approaches and offers you a cup of beer. It's not the light, fizzy beverage of the modern world, but a thick, nutritious, slightly sweet brew, more a form of liquid bread than an intoxicant, though it certainly helps take the edge off a long day. You take a long, grateful sip. Another servant brings a small platter of dates and figs, their sweetness a perfect counterpoint to the malty beer. You settle onto a cushioned mat, your back against a cool wall, and you simply exist. You watch the first stars begin to prick the darkness. The world slows to a walking pace. This, you think, is Nefer, a concept that means beautiful, good, happy. It is a state of being you and every Egyptian strives for. A life in balance. Ma'at. As true darkness falls, servants bring out the lamps. Small clay bowls filled with sesame oil, a flaxen wick floating in the center. They cast a warm, flickering, intimate glow, creating pockets of light in the deepening shadows. The children are eventually wrangled by a nursemaid and taken off to bed, their playful protests fading as they disappear into the deeper recesses of the villa. Your wife moves to sit beside you, her presence a familiar comfort. For a while, you just sit in companionable silence, a silence that only long-married couples can truly master. But the evening is still young. You are relaxed, fed, and contented, but your mind, active and sharp from a lifetime of literacy and administration, is not quite ready for sleep. It craves a gentle challenge, a pleasant diversion. As if reading your thoughts, your wife murmurs, "A game." You nod, a slow smile spreading across your face. "A game." She gives a quiet command to a nearby attendant. The young man bows and disappears, returning a few moments later with a low, elegantly carved wooden table, no higher than your knees. He places it carefully between you and your wife. He returns once more, this time carrying a long, rectangular box made of cedar, its surface inlaid with stunning patterns of ivory and ebony. He sets it reverently upon the table. The air of quiet ritual is unmistakable. This isn't just pulling out a deck of cards. This is an event. You might notice, as your wife prepares for the game, that she is wearing a rather peculiar item. Atop her elaborate wig of braided human hair sits a cone, about the size of a small mango, made of a whitish, waxy substance. This is a cone of perfumed unguent, a solid block of animal fat mixed with fragrant oils like myrrh or cinnamon. It's a quirky but common accessory for the wealthy at any relaxed social gathering. As the evening progresses and body heat does its work, the cone will slowly melt, releasing its pleasant aroma and sending little rivulets of scented grease down her wig and shoulders. It is the height of fragrant fashion, the original hair gloss, though it seems a bit messy to a modern mind. You lean forward, your focus entirely on the objects being placed on the table. This is where your evening's true entertainment will unfold. The servant also places a small cup containing what look like carved knuckles of bone or wood, and two sets of distinctively shaped playing pieces. Before the first move is made, you reach out and pick up one of your 7 playing pieces. It's a spool, a short cylinder nipped in at the waist, and it sits comfortably between your thumb and forefinger. The piece is cool to the touch, with a satisfying density that speaks of quality. You roll it gently in your palm, feeling its smooth, glassy surface. This is your little soldier, your stand-in, your avatar on the journey across the 30 squares. Its fate is, for the next hour or so, deeply intertwined with your own. The material is what makes it truly special. It's crafted from faience, a substance you know as Senet, which translates to that which is brilliant or dazzling. And it is. In the flickering glow of the oil lamps, the piece seems to emit its own soft light. The color is a deep and vibrant blue-green, the shade of a lotus leaf or the shallow waters of the Nile in the midday sun. This isn't just a decorative choice, the color is imbued with powerful symbolism. Blue-green is the color of life, of vegetation, of fertility, and of rebirth. By holding this piece, you are holding a small token of eternal life itself. The process of making faience is a form of guarded magic, a mainstream fact of Egyptian artistry known throughout the land. It's not true clay, but rather a ceramic made from finely crushed quartz or sand, mixed with a bit of lime and alkali. When fired in a kiln, the material fuses and a brilliant, glassy glaze naturally blooms on the surface. It is this technological prowess, this ability to mimic the color of precious turquoise and lapis lazuli, that makes faience objects so desirable. They are a sign of sophistication and wealth, a way to bring the life-giving colors of the world into your home. To have an entire set of 7 game pieces, plus the 7 opposing pieces, all perfectly matched in color and size, is a subtle but clear statement of your status. You place the spool back on its starting square and look at your wife's pieces. They are cones, tapering elegantly to a soft point. For as long as you can remember, the two opposing sides in Senet have been represented by these two distinct shapes, cones and spools. Why these particular forms were chosen is a mystery lost to time. It's a subject of ongoing discussion among the more philosophically minded scribes and priests you know. Some suggest they represent male and female principles. Others believe they might signify different social classes or roles, perhaps a master and a servant, or a soldier and a scribe. A few cynics might argue that they were simply two shapes that were easy to differentiate from across a board and were relatively simple to carve without them rolling away. You've always privately subscribed to the latter theory, though you'd never say so out loud. It feels more practical. Whatever their original meaning, the shapes are now inseparable from the game. You are the spools, she is the cones. The abstract nature of the pieces allows you to project your own identity onto them. They are not kings or queens or little carved figures of chariots. They are simply you and the opponent, pure representations of the players themselves. Of course, not everyone can afford such luxury. Your thoughts drift back to the guards you saw earlier, the ones with their game board scratched onto a loose flagstone. Their pieces would have been a motley collection of found objects. Perhaps one player used smooth, dark river pebbles, worn down by the Nile's current. The other might have used shards of reddish pottery, broken from a common beer jar. The game is the same, the desire for victory just as keen, but the tactile experience is worlds apart. You imagine the feel of those simpler pieces. A wooden set, carved from acacia or tamarisk, would feel warm and organic in the hand. The pieces would be light, and the sound they'd make when moved on a simple wooden board would be a soft, satisfying click-clack. A set made of limestone would feel chalky and cool, each piece having a unique grain. For the truly wealthy, for the pharaoh himself, the pieces could be carved from dazzling white alabaster or even imported lapis lazuli, a stone the color of the midnight sky, flecked with golden pyrite stars. And then there is ivory, the material that makes up the blank squares on your own board. Game pieces carved from ivory are the pinnacle of luxury. The material is exotic, traded from the distant, almost mythical land of Punt, far to the south. It is difficult to work, requiring immense skill from the artisan. An ivory piece feels uniquely dense and smooth, with a subtle grain that is almost sensual to the touch. It represents a connection to the wild, powerful beasts of the remote deserts, tamed and transformed into a token for a civilized pastime. Owning a full set of ivory game pieces would be like owning a chariot with gilded wheels, a statement of wealth so profound as to be almost silent. It needs no explanation. This hierarchy of materials is a mirror of your society. A man's station in life can be understood by the game of Senet he plays. From the dusty, scratched grid of a farmer to the faience set of a provincial governor, all the way to the solid gold and lapis board that was once gifted to a pharaoh by a Hittite king, the game reflects the world. You feel a small pang of anxiety, a familiar feeling when you use this set. It's the fear of carelessness. To chip one of these faience pieces would be a minor tragedy. It would disrupt the perfect symmetry of the set, an imperfection that would grate on you every time you played. It's much less stressful, in some ways, to play with pebbles. This brings to mind a rather human and quirky detail you've observed. You once saw a Senet set for sale in the market that was made mostly of simple, carved bone, likely from cattle. But one of the spool pieces was clearly a replacement. It was made of dark, fired clay and was slightly misshapen. This practice of using composite pieces is not uncommon. If a piece from a beloved set was lost, tumbled into a cooking fire, carried off by a curious child, or simply vanished as small objects do, people wouldn't discard the entire game. They would fashion a replacement from whatever was at hand. Archaeologists in the future will find these mismatched sets and see in them a small, poignant story of loss, resourcefulness, and the simple desire to keep playing the game. It's the ancient version of raiding a different board game for a spare pawn, a testament to practicality over pristine perfection. You look at your own perfect, dazzling blue-green set, and you feel a sense of profound gratitude. Each piece is a tiny sculpture, a small masterpiece of the artisan's craft. The 7 cones and 7 spools sit expectantly on the board, a silent, beautiful crowd waiting for the action to begin. The lamplight pools in the center of the spool shapes and traces the tapering lines of the cones. The materials themselves, the sycamore of the board, the ebony and ivory of the inlays, the brilliant faience of the pieces, all combine to create an atmosphere of focused tranquility. The examination is over. You've appreciated the vessel. Now it's time to engage with the spirit of the game itself. You catch your wife's eye, and you give her a slow, deliberate nod. It is time to see whose journey will be the swiftest. The moment has arrived. The board is set, the pieces are waiting. The only thing left to do is to disturb the quiet order of the opening layout. To do that, you need to consult the fickle will of fate, which in this game, comes in a form far older than dice. Your wife gestures towards the small, carved wooden cup that the servant placed beside the board. You pick it up. Inside, you hear a soft, dry clatter, a sound like insects skittering on papyrus. This is the heartbeat of the game. You tip the contents of the cup into your open palm. Lying there are not cubes with dots, but 4 slender batons, each about the length of your finger. They are made of polished bone, cut so they have one perfectly flat side and one gently rounded side. You know them simply as throw sticks. The flat side of each stick is plain, showing the creamy, natural color of the bone. The rounded side, however, is decorated with fine, incised black lines, a simple pattern of 3 transverse stripes. The contrast between the marked and unmarked sides is the key to everything. You gather the 4 sticks into your fist, holding them loosely so they can move. The feel of them is light, organic, and ancient. You give your hand a gentle shake, listening to the distinctive rattle. It's a sound of pure potential. Every game of Senet you have ever played has begun with this sound, this small ritual of agitation before release. It's the sound of chance being summoned. The rules that govern these sticks are simple, a mainstream fact of the game known by every player from the pharaoh to the quarryman. The number of squares you can move your piece is determined by how many decorated sides land face up after a toss. You let the sticks fall from your hand onto the smooth wooden surface of the table beside the board. They scatter with a gentle clack. You both lean in to read the result. 2 sticks have landed with their decorated side up, and 2 with their plain side up. A throw of 2. That means you can move one of your pieces forward 2 squares. You might have also thrown a 3, with 3 decorated sides showing. Or a 4, a powerful move where all 4 sticks land with their markings visible. A throw of 4 is special. It not only allows you to move for spaces, but it also grants you another turn. It's the ancient equivalent of a power-up, a small blessing from the gods of the game. The most common and, in some ways, most desirable throw is a 1. A single decorated side facing the heavens. A move of 1 square might seem paltry, but like the throw of 4, it allows you to cast the sticks again. It keeps the momentum on your side, letting you build a sequence of moves, a cascade of small advantages that can set the tone for the entire game. Getting a chain of 1s is like finding an unexpected rhythm in a long, monotonous chant. It wakes you up and propels you forward. Then there is the best throw of all, the one you're always hoping for. It's when all 4 sticks land with their plain, unmarked sides facing up. 0 decorated sides. This might seem like it would equal a move of 0, a frustrating dud. But in the curious logic of Senet, this is the jackpot. A throw of 0 grants you a move of 5 squares. It's a huge leap forward, a powerful surge that can change the complexion of the game in an instant. It's the throw that elicits a quiet gasp of triumph from one player and a groan of despair from the other. Of course, not everyone uses sticks. You've seen other players, especially those with connections to the desert trade routes, use astragali or knucklebones. This is a quirky, alternative method of play. They use the ankle bones of sheep or goats, which have 4 distinct, uneven sides. These bones make for a perfect natural die. Each of the 4 resting positions is assigned a value, creating a random number generator that feels even more primal and elemental than the throw sticks. The clatter they make is heavier, a more definitive thunk on the table, and reading the result depends on recognizing the unique shape of the uppermost side. It's a slightly different dialect of the same language of chance. You, however, have always preferred the sticks. There's an elegance to their binary nature, the simple contrast of black lines and plain bone. As you prepare to make your first move, you ponder a small point of friendly contention. There is some debate among even the most experienced players whether that magical throw of all plain sides is worth 5 or 6 points. Most, like you and your wife, play it as a 5. But you have an uncle who insists, with the unshakable certainty of old age, that in his day it was always a 6. Egyptologists in the future will find texts that support both interpretations, suggesting the rules were fluid, evolving over the centuries. Perhaps it's a regional variation, or maybe the value simply inflated over time, like the price of grain. Now, it's time to actually begin. As the winner of your last complete game, your wife graciously allows you to take the first cast. You gather the 4 sticks, close your fist around them, whisper a silent, half-serious prayer to Thoth, the god of wisdom and games, and toss them. They spill across the table. 1 decorated side up. A 1. A small smile touches your lips. A perfect start. You reach for your lead spool piece, the one on the 10th square in the top row. You lift it, the faience cool against your fingertips, and move it 1 square forward, onto the 11th square, which is the last square of the middle row, beginning your journey back across the board. The game has officially begun. The perfect, static order is broken. Because you threw a 1, you get to go again. The momentum is yours. You scoop up the sticks, feeling a small spark of competitive energy. This time, you're hoping for a 5, a way to catapult another piece deep into the board. You cast them. They land with a clatter. 3 decorated sides are showing. A 3. Not the 5 you wanted, but a solid, respectable move. You choose another one of your spools from the starting block and move it forward 3 squares, to land on the 4th square of the board. Now you have 2 pieces in play, 2 fronts on which to wage this gentle war. Your turn is over. The initial flurry is done. You slide the 4th row sticks across the table to your wife. The silence in the courtyard deepens, broken only by the hum of a persistent cricket. Her turn. Her chance to answer your opening moves. The real rhythm of the game, the cast, the move, the pass, has now taken hold. Your wife scoops up the throw sticks. Her movements are economical and precise, the sign of a player who has done this 1,000 times. There is no wasted energy. She doesn't whisper a prayer to Thoth, her expression suggests she believes in skill and probability over divine intervention, at least when it comes to Senet. She casts the sticks. They scatter, and you both lean in to read the result. For decorated sides up. A 4. A powerful opening move, and she gets to go again. She smiles, a flicker of triumph in her eyes, and chooses one of her cone-shaped pieces from the starting block. With a delicate touch, she moves it 4 squares forward. The cone slides smoothly over the inlaid ivory, coming to rest just behind the piece you placed on your second move. Her presence is now established on the board. She casts again. A 2. She moves another cone forward 2 squares. Her turn is over. In a single flurry, she has brought 2 of her pieces into play, one of which is now looming menacingly. As you watch her cone settle onto its square, your perception of the game begins to shift. This is the moment where the mundane melts away, and the profound, hidden nature of Senet reveals itself. You are no longer just looking at a game board. You are gazing upon a map of the Duat, the Egyptian underworld. This transformation of the game from a simple pastime into a religious journey is a well-established truth in your time, a mainstream understanding passed down through generations. During this New Kingdom era, Senet became inextricably linked with the soul's perilous journey after death, as detailed in the funerary spells of the Book of the Dead. The game of passing, you realize, has very little to do with passing the time and everything to do with passing the trials of the afterlife. Each of your 7 spool-shaped pieces is no longer just a piece of faience. Each one is a representation of your BA, your soul aspect, often depicted as a human-headed bird, which separates from your body after death. The winding, S-shaped path across the 30 squares is the treacherous road your BA must travel through the duat to reach the ultimate destination, the Field of Reeds, a heavenly paradise where you will live for eternity in a perfected, idyllic version of the Nile Valley. Getting a piece successfully off the end of the board is not just scoring a point, it is a symbolic victory, a successful navigation of the underworld and a glorious rebirth into the afterlife. Suddenly, the stakes feel astronomically higher. Every cast of the sticks, every move of a piece, is a reenactment of this cosmic drama. A good throw is a sign of favor from the gods guiding you. A bad throw is a stumble on the path, a moment of weakness. And your wife's pieces? They are no longer just the opposition. Her cones now represent the many dangers that lurk within the duat. They are the demons with terrifying names, the gatekeepers who demand secret knowledge, the unexpected traps and obstacles that could condemn a soul to oblivion. Her pieces are now your antagonists in the most literal sense. This brings a crucial rule of the game into sharp focus. You eye her cone, sitting just one square behind your own spool. If she, on her next turn, were to roll a 1, she would land directly on the square your piece occupies. When this happens, a cosmic battle occurs. Your soul piece is defeated in this minor skirmish. It is not destroyed, but it is cast back to the square from which her piece began its move. At the same time, her piece takes your place, absorbing your position and continuing its forward march. It's a brutal reversal of fortune, a core mechanic of the game that represents being waylaid by a demon, failing a test, and being forced to repeat a stage of your journey. Your gentle race has just become a contact sport. A very polite, turn-based contact sport, but a battle nonetheless. The modern frustration of landing on a go-back 3 spaces square has nothing on the existential dread of having your soul punted backward by your spouse's game piece. You contemplate this as you prepare for your next turn. The whole enterprise is freighted with meaning. This is why Senet boards are such essential items in a tomb. This brings to mind the quirky, dual nature of the Egyptian soul, the concepts of the BA and the KA. While your BA, the piece on the board, is off having this grand adventure through the underworld, your KA, or life force, remains with your mummified body in the tomb. The KA is your spiritual double, and it needs sustenance to survive for eternity. That's why your descendants are obligated to leave offerings of bread, beer, and meat at your tomb chapel. But the KA also needs entertainment. It is believed that the KA can use the Senet board left in the tomb to play against unseen opponents, passing the long, quiet centuries of death in a familiar pastime. So the game serves 2 functions, a map for the traveling soul, and a tranquil hobby for the soul that stays home. You wonder briefly if a KA can cheat. Probably. Of course, the game wasn't always this heavy. It's a point of scholarly contention just how far back this spiritual symbolism goes. The earliest Senet boards from the Old Kingdom seem to be purely for fun. The religious overlay appears to have been a gradual development, a slow infusion of theology into an already popular and beloved cultural object. By your time, in the New Kingdom, the two are inseparable. You can no more play Senet without thinking of the duat than you can look at the sun without thinking of the god Ra. You pick up the throw sticks. It's your turn. The fate of this particular BA rests in your hand. The light clatter of the bone stick seems louder now in the quiet courtyard, each toss a small judgment. You need to protect your lead piece, perhaps by moving another piece up to shield it, or by taking a risk and trying to leapfrog past the threatening cone. The game has acquired a new layer of strategy, a texture of risk and reward that goes far beyond a simple race. It is a puzzle, a prayer, and a quiet battle, all played out on 30 squares of ivory and ebony. You cast the sticks and hold your breath, waiting to see what the path of the underworld has in store for you now. You cast the sticks. They tumble from your hand and settle on the table. 4. A 4. A surge of quiet satisfaction flows through you. This is an excellent throw, a gift from the ever-watchful Thoth. It allows you to make a significant move, to press your advantage. You survey the board, which has become a landscape of possibilities and threats. Your lead piece, the one your wife's cone is menacing, is your primary concern. A move of 4 will leapfrog it to safety, well past her piece's striking range. With a steady hand, you pick up the Pharaohs spool. You count out the squares, your finger hovering over the board. 1, 2, 3, 4. Your piece lands with a soft click on the 25th square. It is the last square of the middle row, perched right at the precipice, the very brink of the final leg of the journey. One more move, however small, will take it onto the bottom row, the final 10 squares that lead to victory. This is the home stretch. But it is also the most dangerous part of the entire board. These last 5 squares are not like the others. They are a final exam for the soul, a gauntlet of judgment, peril, and hope. To successfully guide your BA into the field of reeds, you cannot simply have a high throw that sails you past the finish line. No, you must land on the final square, or a square that allows you to exit, with an exact throw. This rule transforms the endgame from a mad dash into a tense, calculated crawl. The gods, it seems, appreciate precision. Your eyes are drawn to the hieroglyphs that mark these final squares, symbols you've known your whole life but which seem to hold a special gravity in the context of the game. The first of these special squares, number 26, is your immediate goal. It is marked with the Nefer hieroglyph, a symbol that looks a bit like a lute and means good, beautiful, or happy. This is the House of Happiness. The name is no exaggeration. It is the single most important sanctuary on the board. This is a mainstream, undeniable fact of Senet strategy. Once your piece lands on square 26, it is safe. It cannot be attacked, swapped, or sent backward by an opponent. It has reached a blessed state, a safe harbor where it can rest and prepare for the final trials. Reaching it is like a long-distance runner finally entering the stadium for the last lap, met with a roar of approval. But right next to this haven is the game's greatest terror. Square 27. It is marked with 3 wavy lines, the hieroglyph for water. This is the House of Water, and it is a place of utter disaster. To an Egyptian, water is both the source of all life, the blessed Nile inundation, and a realm of chaos and danger. In the Duat, there are said to be lakes of fire and boiling water that the unworthy soul must face. Landing on this square is the game's representation of that fate. If your throw forces your piece onto the House of Water, your BA is considered drowned. The piece is immediately removed from the board and sent back in disgrace. Some players send it all the way back to the very first square, forcing you to start the entire journey over. Your house rule is slightly more merciful. A piece that lands in the water is sent to square 15, the board's halfway point. Still, it's a catastrophic setback, the equivalent of having your life's work erased in an instant. It's the square UI with a healthy dose of primal fear throughout the entire game. Next come the Houses of Judgment. The function of square 28, the House of the Three Truths, is a matter of some scholarly debate. It is marked with the symbol for the number 3. Some game reconstructions treat it as another safe square, a place of temporary rest. But the tradition you learned holds it to be a trap, a place of spiritual accounting. If you land here, your piece is stuck. It cannot move until you throw a 3. Your soul is held, being judged by 3 divine assessors, and you cannot proceed until they are satisfied, that is, until fate grants you the specific number required. It can be maddening, watching other pieces pass you by while you sit there, turn after turn, failing to throw a simple 3. Square 29 is much the same, the House of the Two Truths, marked with the number 2. Land here, and you are stuck until you can produce a throw of 2, which will allow you to bear the piece off the board into the afterlife. And finally, there is square 30, the very last space. The House of Rebirth, sometimes associated with the god Horus. From here, you need a throw of exactly 1 to make your final passage. To be on square 30, needing a 1, and to repeatedly cast a 2, 3, or 4, is one of the most exquisite forms of gentle torture the game has to offer. You are at the very gates of paradise, but you've forgotten the key. It's fascinating to see how these crucial final squares are treated by less formal players. On many of the quirky graffiti boards you've seen scratched into limestone, the carver didn't have the skill to draw a proper Nefer sign or the symbol for water. Instead, they would use a simple system of marks. A large X might denote the dreaded house of water. A circle could be the house of happiness. A few simple hash marks could stand in for the numbers 2 and 3. It's a beautifully practical shorthand, a clear sign that the rules and the function of these squares were the most important thing to preserve, more so than their formal religious iconography. The soul of the game, it seems, can be captured even in the simplest of sketches. You look at your piece on square 25. You are so close. Your next throw will determine whether you land in the sanctuary of square 26 or are cast into the abyss of square 27. Your wife watches you, her expression serene, but you know she is calculating the odds just as you are. The rest of the board, with its skirmishes and strategic blocking, seems to fade into the background. All that matters now is this final, treacherous path. The game has entered its most critical phase, a delicate negotiation with luck itself. The fate of this little blue-green soul now depends entirely on the fall of 4 decorated sticks. The air in the courtyard feels thick with unspoken tension. Your faience spool sits on square 25, a lone scout at the edge of glory or doom. Your wife's comb piece lurks several squares behind it, an ever-present threat. The entire game has bottlenecked into this one crucial corner of the board. Every throw of the sticks is now magnified in importance. It feels less like a relaxing pastime and more like a delicate surgical procedure where one tremor of the hand could lead to disaster. Sensing the shift in mood, your wife raises a hand, a gesture for a pause. The sticks will still be there after a sip of water, she says, her voice a calm anchor in your sea of low-stakes anxiety. She is, as always, correct. The pressure is entirely self-imposed. A servant, ever attentive, seems to materialize from the shadows with a small clay pitcher and refills your cups with cool, clean water from the well. You take a long, grateful drink, the water clearing your head. As you set your cup down, your gaze drifts away from the Senet board, seeking a momentary distraction. It lands on another object resting against the far wall of the open-air room. It is another game, but one of a completely different character. It is a massive, circular disc of pale limestone, as wide as your arm is long and as thick as your hand. It rests on a low wooden stand, clearly too heavy to be moved casually. This isn't a portable game for a lazy afternoon, it looks like a permanent fixture, a piece of furniture in its own right. This is the game of Mayhem. Unlike the neat, linear grid of Senet, the Mayhem board is a mesmerizing, continuous spiral. A single groove, like a shallow channel, has been carved into the stone's surface. It starts at the outer edge of the disc and coils inward, round and round, getting progressively tighter until it ends in a central depression. The head of a serpent is carved into the stone at this central point, its stylized eye seeming to watch you from the heart of the spiral. The entire board is a stone reptile, coiled in on itself. The name of the game, Mayhem, is also the name of a god. This is a mainstream mythological fact, a story every Egyptian child learns. Mayhem, the deity, is the called one, a massive, benevolent serpent god whose sacred duty is of the highest importance. Each night, when the great sun god Ra makes his perilous journey through the Duat in his solar bark, it is Mayhem who coils his vast body around the divine cabin, forming a living, protective shield. He guards Ra from the unceasing attacks of Apep, the serpent of chaos, the embodiment of darkness and dissolution. Mayhem is the divine bodyguard, the loyal protector who ensures the sun can be reborn each morning at dawn. To play on this board is to engage with a story of cosmic protection and celestial warfare. It has a different weight than Senet, which is ultimately a personal journey. Mayhem feels bigger. You recall playing Mayhem as a child, though the game is much older than Senet and has already fallen out of fashion in your modern New Kingdom era. It belongs to the age of the Great Pyramid builders, a relic from the Old Kingdom. The game pieces, stored in a simple woven basket next to the heavy board, are a world away from Senet's abstract cones and spools. You know what's in the basket without looking. There are 2 sets of items. First, a collection of small, spherical marbles, some of simple clay, others of that same dazzling blue-green faience as your Senet set. Second, and far more evocative, are the lions. There are several small, masterfully carved figurines of lions, or perhaps lionesses, their muscles tensed as if ready to pounce. They are not cute or stylized, they are fierce, powerful predators captured in miniature. The combination of pieces is baffling on its face. Marbles and lions. What could the relationship possibly be? It doesn't seem like a race. It feels more like a game of pursuit, of predator and prey. The sheer mass of the board itself is a quirky feature of the game. While you could find a simple Senet board scratched on a loose brick, you would never find a graffiti mayhem. It was not a casual game. The surviving boards that archaeologists will unearth in the future are almost all heavy, substantial objects of limestone or alabaster, requiring a dedicated space. They were clearly objects of status, tomb installations meant to last for eternity. The thought of trying to take one on a family trip to the Delta is absurd. You'd need a dedicated cart and a team of servants just for the game board. It was the antithesis of a travel game. You look from the coiled serpent of Mayhem back to the straight path of Senet. Two different visions of the journey. One is a linear progression through a series of gates, a clear path from start to finish. The other is a spiral, a journey inward to a central point and, presumably, back out again. The relationship between the game and the god Mayhem is a fascinating puzzle. The precise nature of their connection is a matter of ongoing study for temple scholars and historians. Did the game, with its spiral track and predatory lions, inspire the myth of the protective serpent? Or did the powerful myth of Ra's divine protector spawn a ritual game in its image? It's a classic chicken and egg problem. Or, in this case, a serpent and spiral problem. Your brief mental detour is over. The water has calmed your nerves. Your wife is watching you, an amused and patient look on her face. She knows you well. She knows you sometimes get lost in the history and meaning of these things. But the present moment calls for your attention. Your BA is still sitting on square 25, vulnerable and exposed. You have a game to win. Still, the image of the Mayhem board stays with you. That coiled serpent, those fierce lions, the mysterious marbles. It represents a different kind of challenge, a game whose very rules are now shrouded in ambiguity and debate. A true relic of the past. For now, however, you must deal with the much more immediate and well-understood challenge of not landing in the house of water. You pick up the throw sticks once more. The heavy, enigmatic spiral of Mayhem can wait. The straight, treacherous path of Senet demands your full attention. You take a slow, steadying breath and cast the throw sticks. They clatter softly. One decorated side up. A 1. Relief, pure and simple, washes over you. It's not a powerful throw, but it is the perfect throw. It is precisely what you needed. You lift your vulnerable spool piece from square 25 and move it a single, triumphant space forward to land on square 26. The House of Happiness. You are safe. Your piece is now untouchable, a soul resting in a blessed sanctuary, shielded from all of your wife's nefarious plans. You allow yourself a small, contented smile. From here, you can methodically work on getting your other pieces home without worrying about this one being cast back into the watery abyss of square 27. Your wife offers you a gracious, if slightly tight, smile. She knows what a significant achievement this is. As she takes the sticks for her turn, her brow furrows in concentration. The dynamic of the game has shifted, and she must now recalibrate her strategy. While she contemplates her move, your mind, now relaxed and free from the immediate pressure of the game, drifts back to the silent, coiled serpent across the room. The Mayhem board. You marvel at its profound mystery. While your Senet board is a well-understood map with clear rules, the Mayhem board is like a book written in a forgotten language. This is the great, central fact about the game of Mayhem: no one, not even the most learned scribes in the House of Life, knows for certain how to play it anymore. The game is so ancient, a relic of the Old Kingdom, that its rules have evaporated into the mists of time. Future archaeologists will be driven to distraction by this very problem. They will find dozens of these beautiful, enigmatic boards, they will find the marbles and the lion pieces, but they will never find an instruction manual. It is the ultimate piece of ancient IKEA furniture with no Allen key and no pictograms to guide you. All you have are theories, reconstructions pieced together from logic and the faintest of clues. It is a grand scholarly debate, a puzzle whispered about in quiet temple libraries. The most common theory, the one you played as a child, is that it was a race game with a predatory twist. In this version, one player controls the 6 marbles, and their goal is to race them from the outermost ring of the spiral into the serpent's head at the center. The other player controls the 3 lion pieces. The lions don't race, they hunt. They move around the spiral trying to capture or devour the marbles, blocking them and sending them back to the start. The game would be a tense cat-and-mouse chase on a circular track, a physical reenactment of the marbles, souls, prayers, trying to reach the divine sanctum while avoiding the dangerous forces that patrol the path. But even this popular reconstruction is fraught with questions. How did the pieces move? Did they use throw sticks like in Senet? Or knuckle bones? And how did the lions, being outnumbered by the marbles, effectively police the entire spiral? It seems like a game that would be incredibly difficult to balance. This has led to other, more radical theories. Some scholars you've spoken with dismiss the race idea entirely. They suggest it might have been more of a sewing game, similar to the Mancala games played far to the south. In this scenario, the grooves aren't a track, but a series of pits. Players would distribute the marbles one by one into the pits, and the goal would be to capture all of your opponent's marbles by landing your final sewn marble in an occupied pit. In this version, the lions might not be playing pieces at all, but simply markers for scoring or for denoting ownership of a certain section of the board. It's a plausible, if less dramatic, interpretation. The most fringe theory, the one that makes you furrow your brow, is that Mayhem wasn't truly a game. At least, not a competitive one. Some believe it was a ritual device, a tool for divination. The serpent's coil could be a calendar, a map of the heavens, or a representation of the intestines used in prophecy. The practitioner would place the marbles according to the stars or a specific question, and their final arrangement would provide an answer. In this context, the lions might represent divine forces or specific outcomes. The thought is intriguing. It would mean that for centuries, people have been mistaking a complex ritual computer for a simple pastime, like future generations finding a calculator and assuming it's a paperweight. Adding to the confusion is a quirky and unsettling detail found in a few very ancient tomb depictions, the orientation of the serpent. In virtually every known Mayhem board, the tail is on the outside and the head is in the middle. The journey is inward. But in 1 or 2 Old Kingdom tombs, the carving is reversed. The serpent's head is on the outer edge, its mouth forming the starting point of the spiral. This small change completely upends everything. If the head is at the start, then the goal isn't to journey into the protective coils of Mayhem. The goal is to escape from the serpent's mouth and spiral your way out to freedom. Is Mayhem a protector, or is he a devourer? Is the game about seeking sanctuary or fleeing destruction? This single, ambiguous clue throws all the confident reconstructions into chaos and proves that we know far less than we think we do. You are pulled from your reverie by the sound of your wife making her move. She has thrown a 3 and is advancing one of her own pieces, putting it in a better defensive position. She has adapted. The Senet game continues, its rules clear and comforting. The path is known. The dangers are understood. The goal is unambiguous. You look one last time at the coiled stone disc across the room. It remains silent, guarding its secrets as effectively as its divine namesake guarded the sun god. It is a beautiful, frustrating mystery, a piece of your own history that has become as foreign as a traveler's tale from a distant land. Perhaps some secrets are meant to be lost, serving only to remind you that even the eternal civilization of Egypt is subject to the quiet erosions of time. For now, you will stick to the game you understand. The Senet game progresses with a stately, almost glacial, pace. You and your wife are now in the endgame, a delicate dance where every move is critical. You trade throws of the sticks, methodically advancing your pieces, blocking your opponent where you can, and maneuvering towards those final, treacherous squares. Your piece in the House of Happiness on square 26 is a source of immense comfort, a little anchor of success in a sea of uncertainty. The slowness of the game, the intense focus it requires, allows your mind to drift once more. You are not thinking of the deep, enigmatic past of mayhem this time, but of a more recent, more lively memory. Your mind's eye travels back a few months, to a trip you took to the northern frontier, perhaps inspecting a garrison near the border with the lands of the Libyans. The atmosphere there was completely different from your tranquil Theban villa. It was dusty, functional, and humming with the restless energy of soldiers with too much time on their hands. In the shade of a sycamore tree, a group of off-duty spearmen were gathered, their voices loud with jeers and laughter. They were playing a game, but it wasn't the slow, spiritual journey of Senet. It was something much faster, more chaotic, and intensely competitive. They were playing what you knew as the shield game, but which is more popularly called hounds and jackals. The board they used was a curious shape. It was a small, portable slab of wood, carved to look like a large shield or perhaps a palm frond. The surface was not a grid, but a pattern of 58 drilled holes. 2 main tracks of holes ran up the trunk of the palm, branching out into smaller loops before converging on a single, larger hole at the very top. The entire layout looked organic, alive, like a stylized plant. What truly gave the game its character, however, were the pieces. There were no abstract cones or spools here. Instead, the players used 10 small wooden pegs, just long enough to fit snugly into the holes. 5 of the pegs were topped with the beautifully carved head of a hunting hound, its ears back and snout forward, eager for the chase. The other 5 were topped with the head of a cunning jackal, with its distinctive long ears and sharp muzzle. The game was a literal race between a pack of hounds and a pack of jackals. The rules were refreshingly simple. Each player owned one side of the board, a dedicated track of 29 holes for their 5 animal pegs. Using throws of knucklebones, the soldiers preferred their rugged imprecision. They would race their animals from the starting holes at the base of the board, up through the looping branches, and aim for the single finish line hole at the top, which was often decorated with a carved shin ring, the symbol for eternity. The first player to get all 5 of their animals home to the final hole was the winner. There was no blocking, no sending opponents back to the start. It was a pure, unadulterated race. The joy was in the speed, the rapid change of fortune, and the simple satisfaction of hopping your little wooden dog past your friend's jackal. What makes hounds and jackals so fascinating is that it's not truly your game. This is a mainstream historical fact that even you, as a cosmopolitan Egyptian official, are aware of. While it's popular here, you have seen merchants from Mesopotamia and sailors from the Levant playing the exact same game on nearly identical boards. It is an international craze, a piece of shared culture that has spread along the great trade routes of the Near East. Archaeologists of the future will find these distinctive shield-shaped boards all across the ancient world, from the tombs of Egypt to the palaces of Assyria and the ruins of Anatolia. It was the viral hit of the Middle Bronze Age, a game that transcended language and borders. It's simple, fast-paced fun appealing to people everywhere. This international flavor gives it a different feel. Senet is intrinsically Egyptian, its symbolism is tied directly to your beliefs about the soul and the afterlife. Hounds and jackals is secular, universal. It's about the thrill of the chase, a concept anyone can understand, whether they worship Amun-Ra or Marduk. Despite its common popularity, that doesn't mean the wealthy didn't embrace it. A truly quirky and beautiful example of the game was discovered in the tomb of a Middle Kingdom pharaoh, Amenemhat IV. It's a breathtaking piece of craftsmanship, made from ivory and ebony, with the hounds and jackals exquisitely carved with lifelike detail. The board itself is shaped like a small hippopotamus, a testament to the playful creativity of the royal workshops. It's a wonderful contradiction, a game beloved by the common soldier and sailor, elevated to the highest level of luxury for a king's eternal entertainment. It's like discovering that the most popular pub game of an era was also secretly played in the royal palace with a set made of gold and diamonds. As with most of these ancient games, there is still some scholarly debate about the finer points of the rules. Some of the surviving boards have faint lines connecting certain holes, skipping over parts of the track. Were these shortcuts, a bit like the ladders in a modern game of snakes and ladders? If you landed on one hole, did you get to jump forward to another, more advantageous position? Conversely, were there trap holes that sent you backward? Without a definitive text explaining these variations, it's impossible to know if they were standard rules or just house rules added by a particular group of players to make their game more interesting. the memory of the soldier's boisterous game fades, and you are pulled back to the profound quiet of your own courtyard. The contrast is stark. Theirs was a game of shouts and rapid moves, fueled by beer and competitive camaraderie. Yours is a silent, intellectual duel, freighted with symbolism and the weight of millennia. Hounds and Jackals is a diversion. Senet is a meditation. You appreciate the simple fun of the former, but your heart and soul belong to the latter. This is your heritage, a game that speaks the language of your spirit. Your wife makes her move. She has thrown a 2, and she uses it to move one of her cones onto square 28, the house of the three truths. It's a risky move. Her piece is now safe from your attack, but it is also trapped there until she can throw a 3. She has traded mobility for security. It is a bold, defensive play. The energy in the courtyard shifts again. Your turn. The simple, happy dogs and jackals are forgotten. You are once again a soul navigating the underworld, and your opponent has just built a new wall in your path. You make your move, a simple advancement of a back marker piece, a tactical but not dramatic play. The game has settled into a quiet rhythm. You look down at your Senet set, bathed in the soft, warm light of the oil lamps. The polished sycamore wood glows. The inlaid ivory of the square seems to float in the dark ebony grid lines. The faience pieces shimmer with their promise of rebirth. It is, you think with a swell of pride, a truly beautiful object. It is a testament to your family's status, a work of art that you can interact with. It is one of the finest things you own. And then, a thought, humbling and immediate, crosses your mind. If this is the game set of a noble, a provincial administrator, what must the games of the pharaoh himself look like? The thought is staggering. You try to imagine the treasures that must be piling up in the tomb of a recently departed king, like the young Tutankhamun who now rests in his sealed valley home. His eternal palace must be furnished with items of such breathtaking luxury that they would make your own prized possessions look like a common farmer's trinkets. In your mind's eye, you part a linen veil and step into the silent, gilded world of a royal tomb. The air is still and smells of myrrh, cedar, and eternity. And there, among the golden chariots and alabaster jars, are the game boards. This is a mainstream historical fact that everyone knows. A king must be equipped for his afterlife with only the best, and that includes his leisure activities. Tutankhamun's tomb, when it is one day discovered, will contain no fewer than 4 separate Senet sets, each one a masterpiece that would be the prize of any museum. You picture the most magnificent of them. It's not just a board, it's a piece of furniture. It's a hollow, rectangular box veneered in lustrous, black ebony, the 30 squares inlaid with brilliant white ivory. The entire box rests upon a low, elegant stand with 4 exquisitely carved legs that resemble the hind legs of a bull, a symbol of royal power. The whole thing is built like a sled, ready to be dragged through the underworld. A small drawer, complete with a tiny golden bolt, is built into the side of the stand. You can almost feel the smooth, cool wood under your imagined fingertips as you slide it open. Inside are the playing pieces, nestled in soft linen. They are not faience. They are solid gold and silver, each one heavy with divine importance. To play with such a set would feel less like a game and more like a holy ritual. The thought of it makes you feel a bit dizzy. Tutankhamun's travel set was likely more valuable than your entire villa. As you explore this imaginary tomb, you notice something curious about another one of the Senet boards. You turn it over, and on the reverse side is an entirely different game. The board is double-sided. This second game has a different layout, a track of only 20 squares, arranged in a central row of 12 flanked by 2 smaller rows of 4 on either side. This is a quirky feature of royal life, a nod to the international character of the court. This game of 20 squares is not Egyptian. It is a foreign import, a popular game from Mesopotamia known as the royal game of yore. For the pharaoh to have it on the back of his most sacred Egyptian game is a sign of the cosmopolitan world he inhabited. It's the ancient equivalent of finding a deck of French playing cards packaged with a set of Chinese dominoes, a little 2-for-1 deal for a king with broad tastes. Your imagined tour of the king's collection continues. You see the hounds and jackals set you were just reminiscing about, but a version that beggars belief. It rests on its own elaborate stand, the board itself made of pure ivory, the 58 holes lined with gold leaf. The pegs are also ivory, their animal heads carved with a level of realism that makes them seem alive, their tiny eyes made from inlaid obsidian. It is the common soldier's game, elevated to the status of a divine artifact. This sheer opulence and the careful placement of these games within the tomb raises a question that is the subject of much scholarly debate among priests and theologians. Are these games truly just for the pharaoh's entertainment in the field of reeds? Or is there a deeper, more critical function at play? Some of the more progressive thinkers you know have argued that the inclusion of a Senet board in the tomb is not merely for leisure, but is an essential piece of resurrection technology. They believe the game is a magical engine. By having it present, the kings Ka and Ba are not just entertained, but are actively empowered to overcome the trials of the duat. Playing the game becomes a ritual act that ensures a successful journey and rebirth. Under this theory, losing a game of Senet in the afterlife isn't just frustrating, it could have dire consequences for your eternal soul. It adds a whole new level of pressure to a friendly match. The vision of the golden tomb fades, and you are back in your own quiet courtyard, the lamplight soft on your face. You look at your own Senet set again. The imagined splendor of Tutankhamun's collection doesn't make you feel poor or envious. Instead, it fills you with a sense of connection. You are part of a great, unbroken tradition. The same game that is being played with pebbles on a dusty rooftop is also being played with gold and ivory in the eternal house of a god king. The core experience, the thrill of the throw, the strategy of the move, the hope of a safe passage is the same for all of you. You are pulled fully back to the present. Your wife has been patiently waiting. It is your turn. Her comb piece sits resolutely on square 28, the house of the three truths, a temporary fortress in the middle of the endgame. You pick up the throw sticks. Your game may not be made of solid gold, but the drama unfolding upon it is real, personal, and, in this moment, the most important thing in the world. It is your turn. You cast the sticks. A 2. A modest but useful number. You use it to advance a piece that is still in the early stages of its journey, moving it from square 7 to square 9. It's a simple, foundational move, a small step in a long race. As you place the cool, smooth faience spool onto the ivory square, your mind returns to the thought you had just a moment ago, the great, unifying tradition of the game. You thought of the pharaoh in his golden tomb, but now your mind drifts in the opposite direction, down the social ladder, away from the quiet luxury of your villa district. Your thoughts travel across the city of Thebes, past the grand temples and sprawling estates, to the West Bank, to the village known today as Deir el Medina. This is where the artisans live, the stonemasons, painters, carpenters, and sculptors who carve and decorate the royal tombs in the valley beyond. These are not poor laborers, they are highly skilled, respected craftsmen, the best in the land. But their world is one of close quarters and communal living, a world away from your private, walled courtyard. In your mind's eye, the sun has just set on their village. The narrow streets are filled with the smells of cooking fires, baking bread, and the faint, dusty scent of worked stone. From the small, tightly packed houses, you hear the sounds of life, a baby crying, a mother singing a lullaby, men arguing good-naturedly. To escape the accumulated heat of the day, many families have climbed the external stairs to their flat rooftops. This is their courtyard, their social space. Here, under the same canopy of stars you are sitting under, they share news, tell stories, and unwind. And here, too, they play. You focus on two men, neighbors, sitting cross-legged on a rooftop. One is a painter, his hand still faintly stained with red ochre. The other is a stonemason, his knuckles thick and calloused. Between them is a game of Senet, but it looks very different from yours. Their board is not a portable, polished object. It is the roof itself. A perfect, 30-square Senet grid has been painstakingly scratched into the surface of a large limestone paving slab that forms part of the roof's floor. It is a permanent feature of the house, a testament to the game's importance in their daily lives. This is the ultimate mainstream evidence of the game's popularity. These graffiti boards are everywhere in the working areas of Egypt, a casual carving that speaks volumes. Their playing pieces are not a matched set of faience. The painter is using 5 smooth, flat, dark grey pebbles, carefully selected from the riverbank for their uniform size. The stonemason is using 5 shards of a broken red clay pot, their sharp edges worn down from countless games. In the dim light, the contrast between the dark pebbles and the reddish shards is perfectly clear. It is functional, practical, and completely without pretense. For a randomizer, they are not using polished bone throw sticks. They use for simple splinters of reed, split down the middle and blackened with soot on one side. They serve the exact same function as your elegant sticks, but you could fashion a new set in minutes if one were to get lost. The atmosphere of their game is different, too. There are no silent, contemplative pauses. There is advice being shouted from the next rooftop, good-natured insults are traded, and a roar of laughter erupts when one of the stonemason's pottery shards is forced to swap places with a pebble. The stakes are probably a cup of beer or simply a week's worth of bragging rights, but the competitive fire is just as intense as in your own quiet duel. You think about the incredible resourcefulness of these common players. Sometimes, when a proper surface isn't available, they will grab a loose flake of limestone or a large pottery shard, an object that future archaeologists will call an ostracon, and quickly sketch a game grid on it with a bit of charcoal. These ostraca are the notepads of ancient Egypt, used for everything from drafting official documents to practicing hieroglyphs, writing letters, and, it seems, playing a quick game of Senet during a work break. It's a quirky and deeply human detail. You can just imagine a foreman finding a beautifully drawn game grid on the back of a delivery receipt and shaking his head at his crew's priorities. Of course, scholars in the future will debate the precise social function of the more public gaming boards. When a Senet grid is found scratched into the floor of a temple forecourt or a quarry rest area, was it for just anyone to use, like a modern park bench with a chessboard built in? Or was it the domain of a specific group, the local temple guards, a particular crew of masons, who created it to mark their social space? The answer is likely a bit of both, a mixture of communal access and personal territory. The image of the rooftop game is so vivid. You can almost feel the rough texture of the scratched limestone board, the heft of a simple river stone piece. It makes you realize that the luxury of your own set is just a veneer. The core of the game, the intellectual puzzle, the dance with chance, the joy of outmaneuvering an opponent, that is the same for everyone. The stonemason feels the same sting of despair when his piece lands in the house of water as a pharaoh would with his golden set. The painter feels the same surge of triumph when he makes a safe landing on the house of happiness as you just did. The scene on the rooftop fades, and you are back in your own reality, in your silent courtyard. Your wife has made her move, and the game awaits your response. The imagined sounds of laughter and shouting from the artisan's village die away, replaced by the gentle hum of the night. That mental journey has enriched your own experience. It has connected your personal, privileged moment of leisure to the great, sprawling, diverse reality of your civilization. You are one player among millions, across hundreds of years. You pick up the throw sticks, feeling the weight of that shared history in your hand. The game is the same. The journey is the same. Only the pieces are different. You make your move. A 3. It allows you to hop another of your spool pieces over one of your wife's, placing it in a slightly more advantageous position. A small victory. A quiet wave of satisfaction washes over you. You look at your wife's face, trying to read her reaction. Her expression is unreadable, a mask of calm concentration. The air between you is thick with a silent, competitive energy. And a question forms in your mind: why? Why does this feel so important? You are not playing for money. Your beautiful villa will not change hands based on the outcome of this game. No titles will be won or lost. And yet, the desire to win is a palpable thing, a knot of tension in your chest. You are playing for something far more common and, in its own way, just as powerful. You are playing for pride. For you and your wife, the stakes are the simple, unspoken bragging rights of the household. The winner will be the house champion, at least until the next game. The loser will have to endure the winner's quiet, smug satisfaction for a day or two. It's a gentle, domestic rivalry, a way of sharpening your minds against each other in a loving, competitive dance. This, you suspect, is what most games of Senet played in homes across Egypt are truly about. They are a contest of wits between equals, a way to pass the time that is both relaxing and mentally stimulating. The prize is the victory itself. But you know this isn't always the case. Your mind drifts back to the soldiers on the frontier, laughing and shouting over their game of hounds and jackals. Their energy was far too raw, their groans of despair too loud for them to be playing for pride alone. They were almost certainly playing for something tangible. This is a mainstream, if sometimes unacknowledged, fact of Egyptian life: people gamble. The priests and moralists may caution against it, but from the barracks to the docks to the quarries, where there is a game, there is usually a wager. The wagers are often small, tied to the realities of daily life. For those soldiers, the prize might have been an extra portion of bread from the loser's rations, or a cup of beer from the evening's allotment. A simple, immediate reward that makes the game a little more thrilling. You can imagine the same scene among the artisans on their rooftops in Deir el-Medina. The loser of a game of Senet might owe the winner a small favor, or perhaps a portion of their lunch the next day. A wager could even be a unit of labor: if I win, you have to take my turn hauling water from the well tomorrow. These small-scale bets on food, drink, and services are the common currency of casual gambling. They add a little spice to the game without risking ruin. However, the official culture tends to frown upon it, especially when it goes too far. You recall a quirky and memorable passage from one of the instructional papyri used to teach young scribes, a book of wisdom filled with advice for living a proper, balanced life. It contained a stark warning, paraphrased in your memory as something like, "Do not linger in the beer house, for the game board will empty your pockets. You will make promises you cannot keep, and your friends will despise you when you cannot pay your debts. You will go home to an empty granary." It's the ancient Egyptian equivalent of a public service announcement, a clear sign that some people did, in fact, get carried away, betting more than just their daily bread. This leads to a point of scholarly debate among your peers. To what extent did high-stakes gambling really occur? It's one thing for a soldier to bet his beer ration, but did a farmer ever wager a goat? Did a merchant ever bet a bolt of fine linen? Did a noble ever, in a fit of madness, stake a parcel of land on a single throw of the sticks? The official records are mostly silent on this. There are no contracts recording gambling debts, no court cases about a game of Senet gone wrong. This has led some historians to believe that major gambling was rare, a social taboo that was effectively suppressed. Others argue that the silence of the records means nothing. Such activities would have been part of an unofficial, underground economy, and the last thing anyone would do is write down a formal, legally binding contract about a wager that society deemed immoral. The truth is likely somewhere in the middle. Devastating losses probably happened, but they weren't the norm. You ponder the very idea of it. What would it be like to play this game, your peace teetering on the edge of the house of water, knowing that your family's prosperity depended on the outcome? It would strip all the joy from the game, replacing the gentle intellectual stimulation with a raw, terrifying fear. It would corrupt the sacred, spiritual journey of Senet, turning it into a vulgar transaction. The thought is distasteful. You conclude that for the vast majority of people, from the pharaoh in his palace to the farmer in his hut, the real reward of the game was the experience itself. It was the social connection, the mental challenge, and, in the case of Senet, the quiet spiritual reflection. The wagers were just a bit of fun, an optional seasoning on an already satisfying meal. You look at your wife. The lamplight softens the lines on her face, which is still set in deep concentration. You are not playing for beer or bread or land. You are playing for this. For this shared moment of quiet focus, for the comfort of a familiar ritual, for the simple, profound joy of being together. That is the true prize. And it's a prize you both win, regardless of who gets their final piece off the board first. You feel a sense of calm settle over you. The desperate need to win has been replaced by a simple desire to play well. You make your next move, not as a warrior seeking victory, but as a participant in a timeless, shared pleasure. You cast the sticks. A 2. A perfect, beautiful 2. You have a piece on square 29, the house of the two truths, where it has been languishing for several turns. With a feeling of profound triumph, you pick up the faience spool and move it the final 2 spaces, bearing it off the board. It has completed its journey. It is reborn. In the symbolic language of the game, one of your souls has successfully navigated the duat and reached the field of reeds. It's a small victory, but it feels momentous. As you place the piece down next to the board, a deep and comforting thought settles upon you. When your time comes, when your own BA and KA separate from your body, this beautiful board will come with you. It will be wrapped in fine linen and placed in your tomb, alongside the jars of beer and wine, the boxes of clothing, and the Ushabti figurines who will be your servants in the next life. This is not a morbid thought, it is a practical and reassuring one. This is a central, mainstream tenet of your beliefs. The afterlife is a direct continuation of this one, only perfected. There will be no sickness, no sorrow, and no difficult tax collectors. The sun will always shine, the crops will always grow tall, and the Nile will always bring its life-giving flood. To enjoy this paradise, you will need all the things that bring you joy and comfort in your earthly existence. Food, drink, music, and, of course, a good board game. Placing games in a tomb is the most logical thing in the world. How could one possibly face an eternity of blissful existence without a familiar hobby to pass the time? The Senet board serves a dual purpose in the tomb, a purpose you've been circling all evening. First, it is entertainment for your KA. The KA, your spiritual twin or life force, remains within the sealed tomb, close to your mummified body. While the BA is off traveling through the underworld, the KA needs to be sustained and occupied. The food offerings feed its essence, and the game boards provide its entertainment. Eternity is a very, very long time, and the prospect of sheer, unending boredom is a genuine concern. Your Senet set is your defense against cosmic ennui. Second, and perhaps more critically, the board is a tool for your BA. As your soul aspect makes its dangerous journey, the Senet board in your tomb acts as a kind of magical GPS and a training manual. It is a map of the territory you must cross and a symbolic representation of the trials you will face. Having it with you is like giving a traveler a map and a sword. It equips your soul for the challenges ahead, its presence in the tomb magically smoothing the path for your spirit in the duat. Senet is both a passport to the afterlife and a beloved pastime once you get there. You've seen this depicted in the tomb paintings of your ancestors. There is a common, quirky scene that always fascinates you. The deceased is shown playing Senet, but their opponent is themselves. An identical image of the tomb owner sits on the other side of the board, making their own move. The meaning of this is rich and layered. Is it the KA playing against the BA? Is it the living person playing against their future, deified self? Or is it a representation of a person playing against their own destiny, their fate hanging in the balance with each throw of the sticks? Whatever the interpretation, it's a powerful image of self-reflection and a contest that transcends the physical world. It's the ultimate single-player game, with your own soul as the opponent. Of course, Senet is not the only game found in tombs. This raises a point of debate among the more scholarly priests you know. Senet's religious function is clear, cemented by its inclusion in the Book of the Dead. But what about the other games? What about hounds and jackals, or the game of 20 squares found in Tutankhamun's tomb? Did they have a secret spiritual meaning, or were they included purely for fun? Some argue that any object placed within the sacred space of a tomb automatically acquires a ritual significance. They believe hounds and jackals might represent a hunt for evil spirits, or the game of 20 squares a negotiation with foreign demons. Others, the more practical-minded scholars, insist that some games were just games. The deceased enjoyed playing them in life, so they were included for simple entertainment, with no deeper meaning intended. They were the celestial equivalent of a light snack, while Senet was the main course. You imagine packing for the afterlife, a process you, as a noble, have given some thought to. It's like preparing for the most important journey of your life. You have to be selective, you can't take your entire villa with you. The list of essentials is long, the proper amulets, the negative confession to recite before Osiris, a good supply of preserved food. But the Senet board is always on the list. It's non-negotiable. Forgetting it would be like a scribe forgetting his palette, a soldier forgetting his shield. It is part of who you are. A soft sound pulls you from your deep reflections. It is the clatter of your wife's playing pieces as she gathers them up. While you were lost in thought, she successfully navigated her final cones off the board. She has won the game. She looks at you, a gentle, victorious smile on her face. You feel no sting of defeat. Your mind is on a much grander game, a much larger victory. You smile back at her, a genuine, peaceful smile of concession. You look at the board between you, its 30 squares now empty. This object is more than just a game. It is a comfort, a companion, a tool, and a bridge to the life beyond this one. It connects this pleasant evening in your courtyard with the eternal dawn of the field of reeds. It is a promise that even when this life ends, the simple, profound joy of the game will continue. Your wife gathers her winning pieces, her faience cones, and places them carefully back into the cedar box. You collect your own spool-shaped pieces, the valiant avatars of your now-departed souls, and place them beside hers. Together, you lift the beautiful board and return it to its resting place. The game is over for tonight. The courtyard returns to its quiet, sleepy state, the only sound the gentle chirping of a cricket. Your Senet board will rest tonight, and for many nights to come. But not forever. Your perspective begins to shift. You are no longer just a noble in his Theban villa. You become a timeless observer, watching as the centuries wash over the land of the Nile like the annual inundation, each wave bringing change, both subtle and profound. The new kingdom, your glorious era of empire and wealth, loses its luster. Its power wanes. Egypt is ruled by foreigners, first by Libyans from the west, then by the Kushite pharaohs from Nubia to the south. Through all this turmoil, the game of Senet endures. It is a bedrock of cultural identity. In these later periods, its spiritual significance deepens even further. The game becomes more esoteric, the rules perhaps embellished with more complex layers of numerology and theology. It is no longer just a reflection of the journey through the duat, it is a ritual text in its own right, a game played by priests in solemn temple ceremonies. It clings to life, its roots wrapped tightly around the ancient religion of Egypt. Then comes a new wave, a tidal force that will change the land forever. A young, brilliant general from Macedonia, Alexander the Great, arrives with his armies. After his death, his general Ptolemy takes the throne, and a new dynasty of Greek-speaking pharaohs is born. This is the mainstream historical turning point for your beloved game. The ruling class now speaks Greek, they worship a blend of Greek and Egyptian gods, and they bring their own pastimes. The Greek elite play Peteia, a strategic game of blockades and captures. They play La Trunculi, a Roman military game. Suddenly, Senet seems old-fashioned. It is the game of the traditional, native Egyptian temples, not the bustling, cosmopolitan court at Alexandria. It's a bit like a folk song competing with a brand new symphony. While ordinary Egyptians continue to play it, its status begins to fade. The core beliefs that gave the game its power are also changing. The concept of the duat is becoming merged with the Greek idea of Hades, the field of reeds with the Elysian fields. If the map of the afterlife itself is being redrawn, the old map, your Senet board, starts to lose its relevance. The Ptolemaic dynasty ends with the death of the last pharaoh, Cleopatra, and a new, even more powerful force arrives, Rome. Egypt becomes a province of the Roman Empire. Roman customs, Roman laws, and Roman games become more and more common. But the true death knell for Senet comes not from a Roman general, but from a Galilean preacher. A new religion, Christianity, spreads through the empire like wildfire. It arrives in Egypt and finds fertile ground. At first, it exists alongside the old ways. But as its power grows, it seeks to supplant them entirely. The old gods are declared to be demons. The temples are decried as dens of pagan idolatry. And Senet, a game so deeply intertwined with Thoth, Osiris, and the journey of the soul, is now seen as more than just old-fashioned. It is a pagan ritual. To play it is to engage in a forbidden practice. The spiritual heart of the game, which had been its greatest strength for over 1,000 years, now becomes its fatal weakness. You can almost picture the poignant, final scene. At the Temple of Philae, an island fortress of the Old Faith, the last priests of Isis continue their rituals long after the rest of Egypt has converted. Here, a quirky and heartbreaking discovery will be made by future archaeologists: the last known, datable graffiti of a Senet board, scratched into a stone block sometime in the late 4th century AD. You can imagine a priest, in a stolen moment, scratching the familiar 30 squares, a final, defiant act of cultural preservation. One last game for the old gods before the temple is formally closed by order of the Christian emperor. After that, the trail goes cold. The game that had been played for 3.5 millennia, longer than any empire had ever lasted, finally, quietly, dies. Of course, some future historians will debate whether Senet truly vanished. They will point to later Arab games in the region, like Tab, which also feature a long track and racing mechanics. They will ask, could this be Senet in a new form, having shed its pagan skin to survive? It's a romantic idea, but the similarities are likely just a case of convergent evolution, different cultures independently inventing similar solutions to the universal challenge of creating a good race game. The direct lineage is almost certainly broken. The great game of Thoth is gone. Its companions fade as well. The game of 20 squares, the foreign import, is replaced by its descendants, which eventually evolve into games like chess and backgammon. The Trail of Hounds and Jackals, the international hit, also goes cold around the time of the New Kingdom's collapse. It, too, is replaced by newer, faster games. The ancient pastimes are swept away by the relentless tide of the new. You watch as the desert sands drift over the ruins of a Roman-era town. The wind uncovers the corner of a stone, revealing a few faint, scratched lines. A fragment of a forgotten game board. But no one recognizes the pattern. No one remembers the rules. The wind shifts, and the sand covers it once more. The silence is absolute. The games are over. Their names are forgotten. Their magic has faded from the world, waiting, sleeping, under the endless sand. For 1500 years, the sands hold their silence. The world forgets. The names of the games, Senet, Mayhen, Hounds and Jackals, are lost, their intricate rules dissolved into dust. The beautiful boards and exquisite pieces lie dormant in sealed tombs, their purpose unknown, their magic sleeping. The memory of the game has vanished from the earth. Then, after a long, dark sleep, a new sound is heard in the valleys of Egypt. Not the chant of a priest or the footstep of a pharaoh, but the gentle scrape of a trowel against stone, the soft whisk of a brush on a painted wall. A new kind of people have arrived. They come from distant lands like England, France, and Germany, armed not with swords, but with notebooks, measuring tapes, and an insatiable curiosity. The age of Egyptology has begun. They unseal the ancient tombs, and in the stale, 1,000-year-old air, they find wonders. And among the golden masks and stone sarcophagi, they find the games. They catalogue them, photograph them, and send them to museums in London, Paris, and Berlin. At first, they are just beautiful, mysterious objects. They are labeled simply as ritual object or ceremonial tray. The function is unknown. The great turning point, the mainstream moment when the world rediscovered Senet, comes in the year 1922. An English archaeologist named Howard Carter, after years of searching, makes a small opening into a sealed tomb in the Valley of the Kings. He peers in, and when asked what he sees, he can only stammer, "Wonderful things." He has found the nearly intact tomb of the boy king, Tutankhamun. The news electrifies the world. A wave of Egyptomania sweeps the globe. Photographs from the tomb show a treasure trove of unimaginable splendor, and among the golden chariots and thrones are the game boards. The public is captivated by the image of that beautiful ebony and ivory Senet board on its elegant sled-like stand. It is no longer just a mysterious artifact, it is identified for what it is, a game. A game played by a king, a game that bridges the immense gulf of time and connects the modern world to the ancient one in a deeply human way. Now the real game begins, a game of academic detection. Egyptologists have the boards. They have the pieces. And thanks to their work deciphering hieroglyphs, they can now read the texts that mention the game of passing. They look at the tomb paintings, like the one in Nefertari's tomb, showing the queen herself playing Senet. They have all the clues, but no instruction manual. You can picture the quirky, passionate scene in a university library in the 1920s. Two scholars, surrounded by stacks of books and photographic plates, are hunched over a hand-drawn replica of a Senet board. I am certain the water square sends you back to the start, one insists, tapping his finger on the drawing. Nonsense, argues the other. The texts are ambiguous. It more likely imposes a penalty of missing a turn. Now, let's reconsider the function of square 28. They are piecing it together, move by move, theory by theory, a grand intellectual game of trial and error. This, of course, leads to an ongoing scholarly debate that persists to this day. There is no single, definitive, universally accepted rule set for Senet. Different experts have published different reconstructions. Some versions are more complex, with more intricate rules for stacking and blocking. Others are simpler, focusing on the race. The game of Senet you might buy a replica of today is a modern invention, at best guessed based on a century of brilliant academic work. It is an echo, an approximation of the game your noble host and his wife were playing on that warm-the-ban night. The true, original game, in all its subtle variations, remains a tantalizing mystery. And what of Mayhen, the coiled serpent? Its rules remain even more obscure, a puzzle that has never been solved. Hounds and Jackals, the international race game, is a bit easier to reconstruct due to its simplicity. But it is Senet that has truly captured the modern imagination. Why? Why are we still so fascinated by this game, thousands of years after its last player laid down their throw sticks? Perhaps it's because playing Senet is a form of time travel. When you move a piece across those 30 squares, you are walking in the footsteps of Tutankhamun, of Nefertari, of the stonemason on his rooftop. You are participating in a tradition that lasted for an astonishing 3.5 millennia. It connects you to these ancient people, not as abstract historical figures, but as fellow human beings who loved a good game, who felt the sting of a bad throw and the joy of a winning move. The game's themes are our themes. It is a journey, full of unexpected setbacks and welcome moments of grace. It is a dance between skill and luck, a perfect metaphor for life itself. You make your plans, you have your strategy, but ultimately, you are subject to the random fall of the sticks. All you can do is play the best game you can with the numbers you are given, and hope you land on the house of happiness. The great historical journey is over. The echoes of the game have faded, and you find yourself back where you started. In the quiet, jasmine-scented courtyard of the Ban Villa. The game has been put away. The night has grown deep and silent. All that is left is the gentle, lingering feeling of peace. Wind down. And now, the story is over. The last playing piece has been put away, and the lid of the cedar box has been closed with a soft, final sound. The flickering light of the oil lamps in that long-ago courtyard seems to dim, the golden light softening at the edges, pulling back into the gentle darkness. The air itself feels heavy, peaceful, laden with the scent of jasmine and the cool, dry dust of the desert night. All the excitement of the game, the small triumphs and the minor frustrations, has melted away, leaving behind only a deep and profound sense of calm. The journey through the 30 squares is complete. The journey through 3,000 years of history has come to its quiet, tranquil end. There are no more moves to make, no more strategies to consider. There is only the stillness of the night, and the gentle, steady rhythm of your own breathing. Let the details of the past drift away now, like soft clouds on a gentle breeze. The images of pharaohs and artisans, of golden boards and stone grids, can all recede, leaving your mind clear, open, and calm. There is nothing left to do but rest. Nothing left to think about but the comfortable weight of your blanket, and the soft surface beneath you. Let the silence of that ancient Egyptian night blend with the silence of your own room. The journey is done. It is time for sleep. It is time to drift, to float, to be at peace. Your own soul has navigated its journey for the day, and now it has reached its own house of happiness, its own safe and welcome harbor of rest.